Tom Davis together with Rick Dempsey and Baseball Hall of Famer Jim Palmer. And Jim, we've got some interesting statistics for you right now. The Orioles obviously are expected to possibly lose 100 games for this season. Now, since 1965, 6 teams have lost at least 100. 5 of the 6 made it to the World Series within 3, 4, or 5 years. The 65 Mets finished 50 and 112. They won the 69 World Series. You remember that. And in 2013, Houston, 51 and 111, won the 2018 World Series. Now, obviously, the Orioles are hoping for a turnaround in the not-too-distant future. What are your thoughts on, just turning it around rather rapidly?
Well, you took the graphic off, so I'm going to steal Rick Dempsey's thing. I mean, you go right down. I mean, the Mets, so 65, they're not very good. Then what, Tom Seaver, Gentry beats me. They get some veteran players. You look at the Braves, Bobby Cox leaves Toronto, actually starts running the Braves, then becomes the manager. Glavine goes from 7-17 to all of a sudden winning 15, 16 games. The Indians, all of a sudden, you got Baerga, you got Lofton, you got Tomei, who's going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, go right down the list. Tigers 2003, what do? They draft Verlander. Orioles get the draft. They maybe not internationally, but we do draft. They get Verlander. They also make a trade for Miguel Cabrera. All of a sudden, they get better. The Nationals, they would lose, 100 games 3 straight years. They used their #1 draft choice, Strasburg, who's hurt. Now they're not playing well. Harper, all of a sudden they get better. And then the Astros, what do they have to do? Folks, don't listen to this, but they had to lose 100 games 3 straight years. So, again,
in two different leagues.
But what they did, and even look at these Yankees in 2016. The Yankees ended up winning 84 games. They get rid of Miller, they get rid of Chapman. Joe Girardi, who's no longer the manager because he won 91 games last year, and they wanted to go with different manager and Aaron Boone. They recreated their whole thing by the trades you make. So between your minor leagues, the fact that the Orioles have Britton, they have Jones, they have Machado. Brock hasn't been pitching well, but they have some guys with value. So maybe you'll be able to, along with your draft choices who you're trying to develop, make a turnaround. Again, I would like to see them, and I'm not going to play the role of general manager for a second, Demper, and I know that, we're always thinking about this. Try to get some guys that are not just prospects and suspects, because there's prospects and suspects in the minor leagues, but when they get to the big leagues, what happens is they're still suspect till they prove they can play here. Get some guys that can play, and then all of a sudden maybe the rebuild will be a little bit quicker.
So you want major leaguers to come in?
I want some, yeah. That's why I'm trading Manny of the Red Sox for Devers and Jackie Brantley Jr.
You've been sort of making that deal happen, it seems like, on the television each night. That's what you keep saying, right?
But people that don't listen to what I say on TV, so no. I mean, you just know. The Orioles, again, by showing these six teams or whatever that made turnarounds, you can do it, but you have to do it through your draft choices. I mean, Demper knows this. How many good teams did you play where, when the Orioles, we had a down, 75, 6, 7, then all of a sudden you had Grich and Baylor, then you had Eddie Murray come up. I mean, you can rebuild your ball club. The Rick Dempsey trade, in 1976, turned the Orioles around, got us ready to play competitive baseball, and then, of course, didn't win the 79 World Series, but a lot of those guys helped us win the World Series in '83.
The hard thing to really find, Jim, though, too, is quality people to come in here. Those kind of people that come in, their work ethic is good. They've got an energy level that really brings the entire ball club up. Those are the kind of guys that really kind of kickstart those good players that, when they're not playing good, they kind of get down a little bit. You need a couple of players on the ball club, too, at the same time that can energize the new prospects that are coming up and the veteran players themselves that have been there to go out and produce and to play the game the way that we learned to play it when we were young Orioles.
Well, you're right, and I think what we always had. I mean, I learned from Robin Robertson, and I was, I pitched with some great, 4 20-game winners and 71s, and I was able to mentor people because I had learned the right way. So the continuity, I think probably that's going to be the most difficult thing, because if you lose Machado, who we all know is one of the great players in the major leagues, you have to replace them, and you hope that maybe you can get a major league guy, or you can get some really high, top, I don't mean 100 prospects, but in the top 20 or 40. I mean, look at the Yankees. They're not playing as well as they're playing Gleyber Torres because, he was able to come over in the Chapman trade. I mean, again, he was in maybe one of the top 5 prospects. So, the Orioles, they do have a trade chip in Manny Machado. You just don't give them away, and I think that's why everybody, I've been thinking for really months, why doesn't somebody go get him? I think the Orioles are waiting for the best deal, and hopefully that will be somebody that will help them rebuild here really in 2018.
The interesting thing about these two, there was never really any kind of a rebuild with them on the teams back in the 70s and the 80s. I mean, Jim was a part of 6 World Series and 3 World Championships. And, of course, Rick played on the 79 and 83 World Series team, so it's a little bit different than it is, obviously.
We just reset. The reset. We've heard that lately, you know.
Tell me where to sit and when to call.
Just think if they every time you went into a slump, they reset you. Where's Demper? Well, he's resetting off in somewhere else.
I'm sunsetting.
Yeah,
that's the Baseball Hall of Famer, Jim Palmer, and we thank you for spending some time with us here on the masn Sports Desk.